and then go back in there with the edit tool and change the shape of that. You can delete entire segments by left clicking to select and hitting delete. It does, though, sometimes alter the shape of segments near it, or sometimes entire segment areas that are connected will delete. So I just hit delete for that princess seam. I can go back in there. But the editing options are really similar to how the 2D pattern editing options work. Now that I'm ready to flatten and extract these shapes as patterns, I am going to open the 2D window and 3D window back up. And there is one little detail that you can do before you flatten your pieces to help CLO understand the shapes that you want better. Any area that I know should be 100% a straight line when the pattern exists. In order to ensure that that happens when the patterns generate, using the Edit 3D Pen tool, if you right-click on a 3D pen segment, you are going to find the option for flattening a straight line. So once you select that, I'm going to go around and select every segment that really should be a straight line when it generates. I'm holding Shift to multi-select things. I'm going to select all of the center front markings, my shoulder seam, my side seam, then I'm going to right-click and choose Flattening a Straight Line. You'll notice that those segments become a little bit thicker, so you can immediately look at your avatar pen lines and see where you have asked this to flatten as a straight line. So now that I've set those lines to flatten completely straight, then I'm going to go to this tool called Flatten. Left click to select the tool, and as you hover in your 3D window, just by simply moving around, you don't have to click anywhere. This tool is going to see those areas as zones that it can select. If you left click, that area will turn yellow, and you can go around and left click to select every area that you have. So all of the areas are yellow. Then by your cursor, it actually gives you the directions for the next step. It says select all areas to be flattened, then press enter. So now I'm going to hit enter on my keyboard. And the program is going to need a second because it's just about to generate all of these different pattern pieces. Okay, so here are the pattern pieces. I'm going to turn the option to show style lines on just for the demo so I can see a little bit better. And essentially what happens, because the patterns generate in the 3D window, they kind of just pile up and spread out. Now what I will do if I have a very complicated puzzle type garment, to situate my stuff in the 2D window, simply select the pieces in the 3D window and start organizing them in the 2D window. And start using the selection to identify what pieces belong to the front and what pieces belong to the back, and organize them as you see fit in your 2D window. Once I have all my pieces gathered in a layout that I like, I am going to select the group and bring this back over here, kind of respecting my silhouette and organizing my pieces in relation to the silhouette. The other really great thing about flattening is that when the pieces generate, anything that generates simultaneously, all of the seams that touch will be sewn together. So I switch to my edit sewing tool and I can just marquee select and it shows me that every seam has been sewn. This will only happen when the pieces generate at the same time. If I had generated these pieces one by one, so select, hit flatten, select, hit flatten over and over again, they would not be sewn. I will demonstrate that after by making kind of a sleeve piece. And if you're careful not to simulate, I haven't simulated once throughout this entire process, I can select the group of patterns that I have, right click and choose symmetric pattern with sewing, put those pattern pieces down. So now I have two halves to my garment. I'm going to scooch this back over, and then I'm going to sew all of my center fronts and center backs together. I'm going to hide my garment for a minute just to show and explain that in the beginning I mentioned wherever you have put a point, when the patterns generate, the point will be in the same location. So at my back bodice, I didn't draw any segment points between the neckline and the waist area. And if you look at the pattern, it is the same. There are no segment points on this part of the pattern. On my front area, I did happen to put some points along the way, and it will do stuff like this. So there is a point, these areas in between, they are the areas I told to flatten as a straight line, which they did. They don't have any curved points at all, but that segment point may still cause a little bit of pattern shaping. So just be mindful that I really didn't need this point here. In the end, I did intend for it to be an unbroken segment because this is just the center front area. So all I'm going to do is go in there and delete that point. And I can do the same at this area. I'm going to delete those points. I sewed it together prior and the sewing stays with it. I'm going to bring my garment back now. And now I am safe to simulate. So this process does initially generate very form-fitting pattern pieces. It's up to the user after this point to edit them or build an ease or do pattern adjustments if they would like something that is a looser fitting garment. But it is a really great place to start if you're trying to figure out something with some really unique seam work where you don't have or don't want to have traditional natural side seams. You want to have kind of more wrapping type patterns happening. So now I'm going to generate a sleeve pattern. I will hide my garment so I can use my flattening tool and my existing garment won't be in the way. First, I'm going to draw where I want that sleeve to end. And you can navigate and rotate and pan while you're in the middle of drawing on your avatar. As long as you don't left click, it's not going to do anything. So I drew my underarm seam and I drew around the wrist where I would like this to end. Now I'm going to get the flattening tool. And one thing about the flattening tool is that if an area is too big for it to even work, it won't highlight or select the area. So below the legs is a very wide area, and the sleeve that I just made is actually too big for it as well. So this is what I will do when I find this limitation. I will use the 3D pen tool to add an extra segment to split that piece in half and make the parts smaller.